Collective is present.
Who is present?
No Lyran Collective.
Wonderful, thank you. Does this Lyran Collective have information on my history with the Lyran Collective?
There are fragments of information that are present. What is it that you wish to know?
Thank you so much, and thank you for being present. Apparently, the Lyran, those that lived in the Lyran constellation, there was a war, they were attacked, and so they fled. I'm sure it's more complicated. But they escaped to the Pleiades and to Orion and to Andromeda. And so I understand I have a Lyran connection, but where does it link through? Where was I one of the ones that escaped during that war and fled to one of those other constellations or planets? And if so, where? Or where does my ancestry connect with you all?
From the archive of the High Council, the lineage and the ancestry that you seek is one that you have been transported from the original tribe, the original council. You have been transported from this, from the original source, out to the Andromedan Collective. You have been introduced there, and that is your new ancestral line. But it is to be understood that this lineage, you were not in physical form when this transport took place. For you must understand that, as you have already stated, the Lyran race was, yes, under attack, and purposefully so. This was a choosing that was not fully accepted by all pure Lyrans. But there was And what you must understand is this, that many of the Lyrans did not leave in physical form. They were, for your best understanding, they were a seed, an embryo, that were in a stasis. And this is how the Lyran race was then repopulated in other locations. This was a survival tactic. We understood what was going to take place. We understood the demise. And in that process, and ahead of that process, we harvested and incubated thousands, if not millions, to survive. That is what was transported out from Lyra.
Thank you. That's fascinating. So I was a seed, or was I?
You were a seed that was sent to Andromeda.
Interesting. And so when you said that that demise or that attack was purposeful, tell me about that, please.
We must understand the planets which make up the Lyran constellation and system were they were in a state of collapse, but sustainable. We understood that there was to be this, as you would say, warring faction that was to take over. But in order to circumvent this, to allow the species to survive, we began our own genetic replication program. Many, yes, did perish, but many more than perished survived. The ships that left, the transports that left, were unmanned, but were pre-programmed for their arrival at other locations.
Very neat. Thank you for that info. So who got to decide where they went? Were they volunteers that went to each of those places? Or did you assign them to?
There was no assigning. It was, for better understanding, it was a numerical choice. Dependent upon the numbers, then those went to certain locations, and another group or batch of numbers went to another location. The identities and understandings of who were, as it is said, to be a seed, were unknown.
I see. And so when they arrived at those locations, who nurtures and develops that embryo? How does that happen, or is it automatic?
The transports were received by a galactic federation of understanding. Before the demise, there had been there have been discussions with the receiving locations, the receiving planets, the receiving systems. And a galactic agreement was signed by all for when the ships do arrive, that the onboard incubation process would continue, but the receiving planet, the host planet, and their inhabitants would then take over from there.
But they're obviously not birthed like humans where they're in another body.
This is correct.
So do they just develop into a
There is you must understand, you are perceiving it to be as similar as your birthing process. It is much more advanced than that. External incubation and birthing is possible. For what you have witnessed in your time here on your planet, through your television and through your movies, is yet a small representation of this external birthing process. For the advancement of technology and science is one that can replicate any gestation period.
And from what we've seen on our television and so forth, it's not very pleasant to watch. It's typically devoid of love and kind of horrific. But I assume that you all were raising those seeds or embryos in a state of love.
For you must understand, what you perceive as being horrific and void of love is from your human understanding, your human vibrational understanding. The notion of love is different in all species. To say that they were taken care of and administered to, that is correct. In all procedural way, they were birthed as planned, then raised accordingly to our genetic needs, and then introduced and incorporated into the life system of the host planet.
Thank you for that. I understand that we don't have anywhere near all the information or any correct information. I was just sharing what we are raised with. But was I correct in that those were the 3 planetary systems that you all went to at that time?
Those are the 3 primary. For in order to have the survival of a species, one must send as many to the far reaches of all the expanse of all universes. There are multitudes that are still traveling. They have not reached their destination.
Wow. That was quite a long time ago.
This is correct.
From our linear time.
This is correct.
So Will has had some past life, if you will, experiences where he was seated on another planet. Do you have information on that one? He was seated on a planet and he was waiting for it to develop appropriately where he could be released from his pod. It seems to me, I sensed at that time it might be Andromeda. Unless it was Earth.
And the information that can be provided is this was not a representation of a Lyran passage. This was a different species. And it is to be understood that, yes, it was your planet that you inhabit now, but well before any existence.
That makes sense. Thank
For
you.
you have to understand, many planets go through multiple seedings. Not all seedings take place and take hold for the population of the planet to take hold.
Fascinating. Thank you. So when you all sent those seeds or embryos out to those different star systems, were they in the form of the humanoid or the cat figure? I understand there are two types, is that
You
correct?
must understand this. Yes, genetically, in the physical form, they have represented themselves as either the feline in nature or the human feline crossbreed. That is in their form as they take once they have been birthed and raised. In this embryonic state, it is not like your human embryo, where your human embryo has all of the genetic code for its physical appearance. This embryonic stage is one that is void of the characteristics. This is introduced once they arrive. For it is an embryo that is void of either feline or hybrid, though there is a genetic code. Once it arrives, it is then introduced with the host planet's genetic line. And as then the embryo then begins to grow, you'll begin to have a hybrid of that planet, that system, with a strong resemblance to the Lyran connection.
Interesting. So all of those, the ones that went to Orion, the Pleiades, and Andromeda, all could look different then.
This is correct.
Interesting. Thank you. So why were those planets in a state of collapse at that time? What was happening? Did they destroy their own planets?
To understand one planet from the other, you must understand the cycle that is inherent with each physical body, each physical celestial body. Whether you perceive it to be a planet or a star or another gaseous form. Wherever there is inhabitants, wherever there is physical beings present, dependent upon the cycle, the planet will renew itself, devoid it of life, and regain life again. If the inhabitants overwhelm the planet, then the inhabitants start this cycle on their own, killing off all species, allowing it to renew itself again. This is all monitored throughout the galactic system. This is a known factor. It is known when a planet is in cycle and is ready for renewal. At that point, then it is then made ready to receive a new seed. This is the process for all planets. Your planet is just like all others. It has been in time seeded and reseeded.
Thank you for that. So even though it was in a state of decline or collapse, it was still going to be taken over or attacked by other beings? And if so, why?
The why is a difficult question to answer, for you must understand that why one race decides to invade another race, another species, that is their doing. To answer that unknowingly is to give false information. But what you must know is that all species, all races, at one time through their cycle, will, as you would perceive, invade another species. Whether that is for material resources, for life existence, or to inhabit that planet. That is for their doing. It is not to upset a balance in the galactic system. It is just the process that is inherent with a physical species.
So it only happens within certain dimensions for our learning, basically?
As you perceive them, dimensions, yes, but it happens, and this planet itself has been invaded in the past. It has been taken over by another species. There is no record of it. There is no understanding of it. But you must understand that with any planet, if it perceives that this is not the correct path, it will then renew itself and start its process over again.
Thank you for that. And so I guess, though, the question is, that seems like it could only happen within a polarity system. Is that correct?
If you're speaking of polarity as good versus bad, knowing and unknowing, right from wrong, that is a perception that you have placed upon energetic dimensional levels. And yes, to some extent, it does end at a particular level. But if there is a need for an energetic body to take over a physical planet, if this need is for the betterment of the planet, then the physical inhabitants would perceive it as they are being invaded and there is a demise at hand. But if the energetic being, the energetic body, the energetic dimensional being understands from a higher place what needs to be done, then from that perspective, it is what is needed for the betterment of that planet.
Well, that makes sense. Thank you. So that basically it's about intentions.
Intentions, yes, but the perceptions between the two are completely different.
Right. That makes sense. So is that what's happening to Earth at this time? Are we being taken over? Is there a war for control over Earth, as some people believe?
It has not been to that point, has not arisen to that point as far as a galactic intervention. There has been intercession from galactic beings, but they are not in a role to, as you would say, overthrow your planet.
But are there some dark energies or what we would perceive as bad that have nefarious intentions that are trying to take over or keep us from ascending? That seems to be a common belief here at this time.
It is interesting how the human perceives all variants of energy interaction. For what you are perceiving, or those that perceive this nefarious, this dark, this unwarranted energy, that is one for their understanding. Just as you have mentioned earlier, as far as the polarity and its necessity or its indifference when this takes place. There is, as far as the beings that are here, and as you perceive them, either good or bad, they are here purposefully. You must understand, it doesn't matter what, as you would say, side they are on. There is a greater purpose for what is taking place. For those that do not believe that there is this, as you say, nefarious group, then all you perceive is the enlightened beings. For those that have the understanding and the perception that there is this other group, then that is what they perceive. But what lies in the middle is the truth, is what is needed, is what is to be focused on. It is the common ground. For each side is doing what they are meant to do. There is no great harm in either side. But it is the perception, the difference between each side. This is also to understand that there is not a being that is causing harm. The beings or the energies or the entities on either side are there to process the human thought, to allow the human thought to make decisions, to allow it to begin to perceive where it needs to be. For those that understand what is taking place, there is a sense of accomplishment, a point of relaxed state. For those that do not understand or wish to believe, there is a heightened state of anxiousness that overrides their thinking. Understand that your planet is not under attack. but it is the mind, the human mind, that is attacking. But between the two thought patterns is where the truth lies. But it is coming to that common ground for understanding. There is time to get there. But it is a process, a difficult process. But also understand this is not what your end of planet looks like. For when either your planet decides to renew itself or the physical beings overrun the planet, and there is a greater force involved to renew the planet, it will be extremely evident and quick.
But that's not close at hand.
This is correct.
Well, that's good to know. So you're saying, to be clear, there are no draconians, reptilians, Anunnaki, any of these beings that are here to attack us, like you said they were attacking the Lyran constellation or wanted to take over.
This is correct. But you must understand, yes, they are here.
Here as in physically on the planet?
Here physically on your planet. But they are not in a... They are not situated to where they can overrule your planet. They are not here to do that. They are here to, as you say, polarity. They are giving polarity to thought.
Aha.
For if they were not here, then your planet would be much different. But the reason for this planet is just that, to have an understanding of what both sides are, whether that is good or bad in your perception. You must understand all beings, whether it is what you have mentioned or others. Yes, they have their own understanding, and they have their own process of life. But there also is a common agreement, a common galactic agreement, that certain planets are by nature not a planet in which they then can fully overtake. There is a commingling of all beings, and it is a point at which here on this planet the human beings awaken to a certain understanding. And this and that gives the polarity of thought.
Beautiful. That makes me, I really have a better understanding. Thank you. Thank you for that. So when you say there are those reptilians or various other beings that are here walking in physicality, does that mean that they came directly from that home planet? Or that's just part of their ancestry, like the Lyrans are part of my ancestry? Or did I come straight from there?
At this particular point in your time scheme, there is no direct being. It is all a hybridization of one genetic strain to another, though characteristic-wise may be stronger in appearance than others, and hold the traits of that particular race. All beings have been genetically modified and contain all genetic coding. Just as has been said, once a transport arrives, and this is for all beings, all races, once a transport arrives, it is then infused with that planet's genetic material, making a hybrid.
But there never really was a true pure human to hybridize with, was there?
This is correct. The human is but a pure soup
Right.
of DNA, of genetic code.
So I understand, though, from the Zeta that we used to talk to, that we haven't talked to in a while, but that there are some what we would call extraterrestrial beings who are just in a human suit, who actually are still an extraterrestrial being, more so than a birthed human. Can you tell me what percentage of people are that, or explain that a little better?
So the human itself is a physical being. Yes, genetically, it is a compilation of all genetic material throughout time. That is the physical aspect of the being. Energetically, it is all one energetic core. It is all the same. Just as in any other species of, as you say, alien or entity, there is an energetic core. That energetic core is the same no matter the being. It is all the same energetic core. Just as you inhabit this physical being's presence, you are inhabiting the mix of everything. When you enter into, as you say, a Zeta or a Lyran or any other species, you are inhabiting that genetics makeup. So to say that the human species is different from any other, it is not. It is very similar to all others in the fact that it is a piece of all galactic material. There is a very small amount of the original human DNA left inside. Though your scientists have yet to determine that, they are only witnessing a small portion of what is actually there.
Thank you. And so Lyrans are superior geneticists, correct?
This is correct.
So I'm asking the expert all of these questions. Thank you for that. So a lot of humans have this understanding that there was a call put out for Earth at this time for starseeds to come and incarnate on this planet to help it evolve. So what would that mean then, other than, where are those starseeds coming from? Are they coming directly from their home planet, and is that somehow different than the way other people are birthed here?
To understand what it means to be called, each of you have had a calling. Some greater than others. When there is a call, say a Lyran is called, there is a understanding that this energetic thread, to understand is difficult. The cleaving of the source, once that cleaving takes place, there is a induction of that particular species. Lyran would then induce itself into the cleaved piece from source. And at that point, it enters into a specific called body. That called body would then intertwine with that Lyran piece, call up its Lyran genetics, and be able to pull that through for a Lyran connection.
In a human body.
In a human body.
But that sounds like a pure chain of events, whereas a majority of us have had lives as other things. So how does that work within that type of framework.
The understanding that you're trying to comprehend is the linear timeline versus the aspect of all dimensionality at one time. If there is a need for a zeta, if there is a need for name any other species, the process is the same. It is being pulled from all over. That, as you call Starseed, that is the most relevant time point at which it was called. If it was the same process for the zeta, then the zeta then is called into and put into play. This is a difficult concept to understand. It is not a pure form. It is just at that most relevant point along your linear time frame that is what is necessary. At that particular point on the scale, if a Lyran is needed, then that is what is called and that is what is received.
Perfect. Thank you for that. I think I understand a little better. And I appreciate your patience. So there was a calling for starseeds at this time in history? Is that accurate?
This is correct. What you must understand, you are witnessing what you are aligned with.
Lyran.
A Lyran. But as far as the Starseed aspect, you are aligning yourself with that perception, that thought scheme. If there are that many Starseeds for your understanding and the betterment of the planet, then what has been already discussed, there is the equal of the other.
Wow, okay.
So if you then find yourself in turmoil of understanding why all of this is taking place, you have an understanding now that the greater whole is an equalization.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow, it's so clear to me. Thank you. Wow. So when I had the eye reading and I noticed the constellation in the eye and it was told that it was from the Lyran constellation, was there a specific reason? Was I supposed to connect with you today or get this information?
Do you understand how your connections are achieved? For you must understand that when a calling or a bit of information, a bit of data needs to be received, you will understand this. You will understand when it needs to be brought forward. So yes, you can say that that was your witness mark for an understanding that a conversation must take place.
Thank you. So you knew I was going to call on you.
This is correct.
Well, thank you for coming in. And what, for our terms, what dimension are you coming to me from today?
As you would perceive it, as you would place a label upon it, it would be the 7th dimension.
Wonderful, thank you. And when you say we, are you part of this council that you were talking about?
This is not correct, no. When I say we, it is the collective of the Lyran.
Okay.
The High Council is where the information was derived from for your first question.
Right, and what dimension are they operating from?
The High Council is comprised of all from the 6th through the 12th.
And they were just the Lyrans, though, correct?
This is correct. That is what you have asked for.
Correct, thank you. So I understand from a previous reading that I'm negotiating something going on with the way that Earth evolves, that my soul family has gone back and forth with lives exploring this concept of control versus freedom. So my oversoul has done that as an exploration of that concept. So is that accurate, that I am negotiating something in terms of how that concept of control and freedom will play out as we move into this new earth? What do you see from your perspective with regard to that?
This is not a part of your galactic informational load. This is part of your human to soul contract. This is your choosing, your witnessing of this struggle, this physical struggle between the control and fear is what is in place for your physical agreements here. But what you must achieve, what you must achieve is your direct, linear connection to your Lyran self. For negotiation, as you are stating it, negotiation is not quite what it is. It is an arbitration between both the understandings. As it has been witnessed, this middle ground, this common understanding that lays in the middle. This is where your footing is. This is where your arbitration, utilizing your Lyran information, your Lyran connection.
Aha.
For you will then be able to witness all the Lyran activities, from the transport and previous to the arrival to your connection. You will be able to witness and understand how each side will come to a reconciliation.
So Lyrans are known for their arbitration skills?
They are. There are many other races that will have an equal balance in this. It is just that the Lyran is your strongest connection galactically at this particular point. That is what you will call upon. You must have this direct connection with it. You will then be given this information. You will have the witness to you as far as all of its past.
Amazing, thank you. So I do like to kind of have a picture in my mind of who I'm connecting with. Would I visualize, or can you send me a picture somehow? Would it be a feline-looking being or more of a humanoid facial structure?
It is not just one that you will be receiving this information from. It is your connection, your galactic connection as a Lyran. You will not be witnessing yourself, but you will be witnessing those on the High Council. And you will then be perceiving them as both a direct Lyran with the feline features, as well as the hybrid human features.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarity.
As you ascend along the High Council chair, the higher in dimensional level, the closer in resemblance to you as a human they will become.
That's interesting. Why is that?
That is their genetic lineage as they have progressed up the dimensional levels. For as the lower levels are still in the feline, as you perceive them, identity. That it is not that their information and knowledge is any less, but it is dependent upon where they sit on the council, and as you perceive it, their dimensional level, and the acceptance to those that then connect at that level. Some do not wish to connect at a lower level, for it is not comfortable for them to be receiving information from a feline perceived being. Others wish to connect with those that are similar in appearance to them for an understanding. But you have this understanding that there is this mix across the levels. This is not to say that all that are at the 10th dimensional level all look the same. It is just the presence on the council is an ascending into the humanoid appearance.
I see. That's very interesting. Thank you for that. And so does Will have a Lyran strong connection at this point in time as well? He was told that there was a blue avian connection.
The Lyran connection is not the strongest connection.
Are you able to tell which connection is? Is it the blue avian or?
The blue avian, yes, is there, but it is not the strongest. The Zeta still is the strongest connection.
Fascinating. Thank you. So is there anything else that I hadn't thought to ask that's important for me, Will, or humanity to know at this time?
As far as the humanity of the planet, understand that this is your course. You are on your plan. The planet is just fine. It is not going to renew itself anytime soon. But there is a division amongst all beings, and it is a perception. It is not a reality. It is to begin to understand that there is more than just one outcome for all thought process. There is more to be achieved in stepping into the middle than remaining behind your barriers.
That's always a fantastic message. Thank you for that reminder.
You are welcome.
So I assume you're okay with me sharing this information. It seems definitely pertinent to others.
All information that is transmitted is shareable as you see fit.
Thank you. I'm honored to be connected, and I'm thrilled that you came through. I'm very appreciative, and I look forward to connecting more with you all in the future. Thank you so very much for coming in.
Thank you.